Hi, I have my better webcam back this month, which is super exciting. Yeah, so I was fiddling around with it a little bit. Okay, yeah, no, it's that's what I got. What am I saying? What am I telling you about? All right, I think we're all set up. I think I'm fairly confident that the microphone is good and all my sound is good. Let me know if it's not for any of you out there. And I think we're set. Okay, hello. Uh, Doing an annual review. It doesn't have to take a retreat. It really can be done in an hour. And honestly, sometimes I take an afternoon because it's an enjoyable process. But you really can just set aside an hour and go for it. And this is a great way to set the basis for making a year plan going into 2023 next year. It's also time to, pat yourself on the back and get you through the marathon that is the holiday shopping season when you have a retail business. So, yeah, just 1 hour. This is Craft Leftovers Live. I'm Kristen M. Roach. I'm an artist, author, and entrepreneur. And here on Craft Leftovers Live, I talk about creative entrepreneurship topics, things I've learned over the last 20 years of owning a small business, e-commerce, retail brick and mortar, freelancer, fine art to craft, all of the above. And it's a fun project. It's kind of wild that this is the last episode of the year. Anyway, more on that in a second. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, comment with your questions. Tell me what your creative business is. I'd love to come check it out. And thinking about this being the last episode, let me know what you'd like me to talk about in the future. Is there a specific thing that you think I might be able to give you a little guidance on? Maybe I'll make it into a whole live stream. We'll see how it goes. So today we're getting back to it. Making your year review. I'm just gonna jump right in. Last month I went super overtime. I'm gonna try to be a bit more concise. We'll see how that goes, right? There's some crazy eyes for you. I just saw that come up. Anyway, yeah, this is the last live stream of the year, and thinking about a year in review, there were so many things I did not get done that I had hoped to. Quite frankly, one of which was the podcast. I awesomely, yes, I did it. I did one live stream every single month for the entire year. That was my big thing, my big goal. Like today, honestly, I really wanted to dodge out of just because I was like, no one is even really out there watching this. Like, I'm really kind of just doing it for me, for the practice, to just get comfortable with this format, and to come up with a year and a more comprehensive executed plan for next year, and just having this experience of doing at least 12 live streams and that kind of thing. And I was like, I'm so busy. There's so much going on in the shop. There are literally customers waiting for me to fill their orders. So I'm like, it's hard to say, no, I'm going to stop and commit, or I'm going to stop and do this thing I committed to. But now that I'm here in front of the camera, I'm really glad I did, because the topic that I chose a couple weeks ago was doing an annual review. And I'm like, man, do I want to be able to stand up and say for the annual review, that I completed my 12 live streams? Or do I want to say oh, I did 11 and then I totally just gave December a pass, which I think would have been acceptable and understandable, and I don't think I would have given myself too hard of a time about it, but I definitely feel better. I feel better here. I feel better having done it. And this is something Jason, who he goes to the gym like freaking clockwork. It's amazing. I'm so impressed with him all the time. His ability to execute on what he's committed to. And I have a difficult time with consistency. I'm really great out of the gate for like the first 2 weeks to 4 weeks of like working out consistently. But then after that, I really taper off. But Jason is like clockwork. And one of the things he told me that's helped me a lot with consistency is like, will you regret having done it, or will you regret having not done it? And I'm like, oh man, that's I I know he heard it from somewhere, and he probably even told me who it was at the time. I don't remember. So me, I'm just like, that's like words of wisdom from Jason. Anyway, yeah, so like that that's a big accomplishment for me. You know, just doing this thing. I was really nervous. I'm um video is not a native format to me. Like I don't feel comfortable in front of the camera at all. And so like going through this process, getting more comfortable in front of the camera, with the format, with the technology, like that's huge. On the flip side, I didn't follow through quite as well on the podcast, and I did 2 interviews, which went really well, and I really enjoyed doing for the Mend It Better series, but I didn't follow through on the other ones I had hoped to do, both in like the written on the blog, as well as, um, just creating that like additional episode each month, like having 2 things a month instead of just the live stream. And so that was something that, like, yeah, that feels like a failure with a big F, and that sucks. But again, it's like internal expectations. That was a goal I set for myself. No one was making me do it. And so now looking at the annual review, it's like it's a great time to look at that and say, if I'm feeling like that was a failure, is there space in this upcoming next year for me to make that happen? And is it really even is it even a failure that it didn't happen, or is it just kind of like a delay, and that those are going to get spaced out further into the future than I initially planned, and and that's okay. And that might, in some ways, that might even be better. Um, so that was one thing, and then the other thing was like, I wanted to make each of the live streams into a podcast, and I did it for most of them, but I got kind of backed up at some point, and then I've just had a hard time getting the rest up there. So I think I'm like 2 episodes behind where I need to put out last month's live stream as a podcast before I do this month's live stream as a podcast. And there's like the editing process is still like super cumbersome for me. So that's another like potential point of growth. Anyway, so enough on that. I'm just excited that I got here. This is I believe it's episode 14 of the Craft Leftover podcast when I finally get them, out there. But that I did it, that I actually like launched a podcast. I put it out there. I went through the whole process of getting it on like Apple Music and all that jazz, which was total pain. And that feels like something. Anyway, so main point, it's super easy to fall into the trap of like never enough. As a creative entrepreneur, as a creative person, you have so many ideas, and there's so much potential, and you want to do so many things, and you want to be with so many people, um, and you want to be there for people like your family, your friends, the public, and there's a lot of draw on your energy, and it feels like never never enough, that like no matter how much you do, there's always an additional ask. There's always another demand, both internally or externally, from a, spouse, kid, friend, family member, customer, potential client, general public, it, neighbor, whatever. But a lot of it is internal. And don't do that. And so, like, you could take an annual review as a place to really beat yourself up and to remember all the things that just went, you know, that I would highly encourage you that that's not what this should be about. This last year, I read a lot of books. Well, I listened to a lot of books on Audible. One of them really stands out, and it's called The Confident Mind. Um, I'll put a link in the show notes for it. And it's one I keep returning to over and over again because it's really about retraining how how you remember things to build your confidence going forward, and um, and to just really make your I feel like a big part of it is to just like not just be more confident, but have more contentment where you are and have more like of a productive critique of past events versus a kind of like wallowing in how bad things were, or like how much you sucked at, or sorry, how bad you did at something, you know? Like, doing a live stream has been a great exercise in this for me of like, each time I do a live stream, I have to rewatch it, and that's been the most difficult part of editing, and I think that's why I've really struggled to like edit and get it released as a podcast, is because I have to watch the whole thing. And it's like video and audio, and it's like every time I stumble, every time I get my foot in my mouth, every time the lighting is freaking terrible, or I forgot my webcam at the office, and so like the webcam is bad, things are out of focus, I forgot to say something really important, whatever the thing is, there's all those things that I could hone in on, and those could be the things that I remember. I don't need help remembering those. I don't need to write those down. What I do need to write down is like, not like, oh, don't forget your webcam at the office. It's like, put it in my calendar, bring webcam home from office on this day. Like an actionable item for the future, not a critique of the past for the future, if that makes any kind of sense. He gives a ton of examples. A lot of it is applicable to athletes and like CEO type people are the examples he gives, but many of them I feel like you can easily transfer into these like everyday situations, like doing a live stream for the first time. And yeah, so like this time of year too, like I really was like, oh, I should have. I heard someone recently say like, don't should yourself to death. Yeah, right? Like I should have done a live stream about making a plan for like your holiday sales season, right? That's a great idea for next year. I'm going to write that down. It's too late, right? Like if you haven't made a plan for the retail season at this point, like the holiday season, it's not it's it's too late. It's done. Like you can't order in more supplies. You can like scrappy put some stuff out together and push it out in the world, but you don't need a plan for that. You just need to do it, right? Like it's execution time right now. So this is actually the perfect time to grab the coziest cup of tea, all of the random things, Google Calendar, planner, journal, sketchbook, your social media. Don't get too distracted though, right? Like, yeah, don't do that. Or if earlier this year you joined me during like, and you watched episode 1, the very first one has actually been my most popular, or one of my most popular live streams, is the very first one. We talked about making a year plan any time of year. If you did that, if you went through that process, grab that. That's a great one to like look at what were your expectations for the year and how did it all shake out. And so I'm going to flip over to an overcam view so you can kind of see what I'm talking about if you haven't checked out episode 1. So here we go. I'm going to move this up here. I'm going to bump some cameras around and make a mess. Hold on just a second for me here. That is hilariously crooked. Whoop. And, the cup of tea This is why this was in the way, because I was like testing bringing it down lower. So you can kind of see tea over here. Definitely gonna fill that up. Today I'm drinking some Earl Grey, which every tea there's like, or every year there's like a flavor, right? So in 2021, it was peppermint. It was peppermint. Like people were just going nuts over peppermint. In 2020, I feel like it was floral things and like chai. So like really calming things. This year, Earl Grey. Oh my gosh, we have never sold so much Earl Grey. And like in all its forms. Regular Earl Grey, Lady Grey, which is Earl Grey with lavender, decaffeinated Earl Grey. We have this tea called Twilight that is very Earl Grey-esque. and like, yeah, it's been crazy how much it's just like flown off the shelf. Okay, so earlier this year, oh, it fell, hold on. We did this like year plan, and real quick, basic idea was, hold on, I'm gonna move this light. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, that's a little better. Earlier this year, we did the annual review. And so basically there's ongoing year-long things, seasonal things. Oh, can you focus, please? Focus on this. On this. Thank you. Tea stain. That's appropriate. And then we had like kind of month by month. And so these were kind of things that I was mapping out that like already committed to, definitely planned on happening. Why is this not focusing? Oh my gosh. There we go. Okay. Definitely committed to. So I had things like exhibit launches, vacations, events. It was a lot of event-based things or like deadline-based things. I had a triathlon on here and all that kind of stuff. So if you have this, grab it. Please focus. OMG, that's frustrating. Anyway, I also did kind of the other part of that too that I went through is I had this like monthly calendar. And so then I took all of my annual planning stuff and I plugged it into here. And more like that week by week, day by day, really plugging in those deadlines and kind of put like the big month things just on the bottom here and like the quarterly things down here. And so this kind of was the thing. The other thing too is you can kind of cheat a little bit for your next year if you did all this, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, a lot of these things are still the same. Like we still have the same schedule going forward for live streams, for different annual events that we do downtown. I don't know why this isn't focusing. It likes my teacup quite a lot, so I'm going to keep that right there. No, actually, I'm going to take a sip, and then I'll keep it right there. Oh, it's trying. It wants to go out of focus again. Okay, so then specifically for craft leftovers and my art business, I did this like, it does not, I'm sorry, y'all. It doesn't like it. Okay. I did a monthly content schedule of like newsletters, blog posts. I gotta say, of all the stuff I had planned this year, this was the thing that was like, whoop. I did the monthly live stream, and then beyond that, I had a really hard time with consistency on my blog posting schedule. I think I jumped in too much, and then I had some really big staffing changes that happened that like really blew it up. Anyway, and then about the time that I was So I don't even know if I showed this during the annual plan, but this was a thing that I did for myself when I was feeling excessively like, oh my goodness, what have I done? When I actually got the grant for the migration tapestry, and when we first started to realize all the material delays that were happening and that. And so I made this where I charted out, I blocked out month by month for a 10-month period, kind of like when things were due and like how it flowed and overlapped. So I could kind of visually see the overlap of projects. I don't know how helpful it was because I probably never looked at it again, but at the time it helped me figure out when to set deadlines. So it was a helpful organizing tool, but it wasn't like something I returned to. Okay, so those were some things that I did. Now, again, how do you actually bring this all together? And it's wild because it's like only 3:22, and I swear I've kind of said a lot of the things that I want to say. So now what you're going to do is you're going to just look through, just like read it. Just grab your cozy cup of tea, take a sip. And I kind of have, okay, this is where we're going with this. You have 2 pieces of paper. I like graph paper. We're not going to keep these forever. You're going to get, like I said, you're a creative, amazing person, and you've got so many freaking ideas, it makes your head want to explode. So what we're going to do is we're just going to capture those, because as you review last year, stuff's going to be turning in your head, and you're going to start thinking it, and you're going to want to go down that rabbit hole. And this is how this can take an hour instead of a whole weekend, is because you're going to just capture those ideas and then shove them to the side. So like, we're going to look back at all the things that we feel super proud of, your brag list, and you're just going to start jotting those things down as you come across them. You're not going to dig into what went right, what went wrong, all that kind of jazz about it. You're really just looking for what were the big things that happened this past year, or the things that were very impactful that make you feel really good. At the same time, anything that is like, you want to remember it for going forward. It's an idea you maybe want to do it next year. You maybe want to re-up that goal. Maybe it's something you didn't get done. Like for me, I wanted to go camping every single month this past year. Do you know how many times I ended up going camping? 0. That could have been a very disappointing thing. But it wasn't, because I looked at all that I was doing and all the good things in my life, and I was okay not going camping, because at the same time I was not camping, I was still going hiking every single week. I was still having campfire, in with the s'mores and the full experience. And I did sleep in the backyard in my tent with my kid, which was super fun. And so I had outdoor experiences that I love and treasure. And to me, that was more important than like really pushing for camping, which would have been very difficult this past year for a variety of reasons. Um, posting consistently on craft leftovers. I would love to have more open studios. Like, they went so well this past year and it was so much fun. We just did one on Saturday and we have one again tomorrow night. And like last Saturday, it was so fun. And people came up and they're like, oh, so when are your normal hours? And I'm like, we don't have normal hours. We kind of just do this for fun whenever. And it was great. It was really fun. And I already mentioned like completing that Mend It Better, or like continuing the Mend It Better interview series and that kind of thing. And I'm just getting more ideas and things. And so that's kind of what's happening on my second piece of paper is I'm just jotting them down as I go along, as I go through my, you know, detailed time flow, as I review my sketchbooks, and all that kind of thing. I'm writing down the things I feel really good about, the big accomplishments, the small feel good accomplishments, the points of pride and joy here. And then anything that I would like to continue, reboot, or is like a new idea, I'm jotting down on another piece of paper. What do you do with this? Well, you could just keep it like this, and then when you do your annual plan, your year-long plan, in whenever you do that, in a month or so, you could just reference these things. But I I found it very beneficial. I started a thing last year where I made this, and it's not pretty. It's not an art piece. It's not even a beautiful craft piece. It's not a beautiful anything. It's really just for me. I'm sharing it with you because I feel like it's a good reference of like, it doesn't have to be fancy. I just grabbed a piece of, this is just like a random piece of art paper, and I used a fancy dip pen, and I started jotting down, I started with the idea of like one thing for each month, the idea that there would be like 12 things I was really proud of on here. Oh, and it kind of reminded me of like signing a yearbook, but like to yourself. And so, like, in 2021, some of the things I was really proud of was, um, that it's silly, but things like fixing the fence in our front door and like giving everyone a raise, like a 12.5% raise at Littlewoods. Like, that was a really big deal to me. Um, or even like something kind of sad and notable, but like also the good side of it too was like in 2021 in January, my great aunt Rose passed away from COVID. Um, a lot of people talked about like elder care facilities and how the pandemic hit them really hard. And yeah, my that was my aunt Rose. Um, and so like the good thing that came out of that was in my grief and in processing my grief for my aunt Rose, who I was fairly close to, and growing up and things. And I started to draw every single day. And it was through that process of drawing every single day that set me on the path to do the Backyard Botanical Series, that really got me back into the studio and into my art practice. And so, like, that was an impactful moment in my life. And I want to remember that going forward. And yeah, so I'm going to just start making one of these for every single year, and it's even things like I taught Lucy to ride her bike, and um, she's not quite 100% there, but she's doing a lot better. And I sold my first print on my online store. Things just like those little pops of happiness, that I made a beautiful garden and I built a trellis with a gate. It's like it doesn't have to be some big like huge thing. Sometimes it can just be these really small wins that are like progress forward in your life, things that make you feel good, things that you'd like to remember that you won't. Like, I won't remember when I built that trellis. I won't remember what year my um, Aunt Rose passed. So things like that. Or, I have on here that I went walking with my friend Sonia during the summer nearly every Friday morning. Like, that was really wonderful part of 2021, and something that's continued in 2022 as well. So, yeah, that I took a natural dye class. Anyway, so like all these things, so good. Um, and that's kind of the thing. It's like This is like, maybe you don't even add all these things to something like this. Maybe you don't do this step at all, and that's okay. But like, going through this process and just collecting these things up, it's like, whoa, I really did do a lot. And everyone's list is going to look so different. Like, maybe your list has a completely different focus. Like, my sister's list would look totally different. Like, she went on the lawn this year. I feel like that would probably make it on her list, right? Um, Other people, it's very different. It's like, I finished another semester at grad school. Like, that is hard and good and worth noting, right? So now, some of you might be keeping a journal or a calendar really consistently. So we have to think about is like, where are the places that you would look to find this kind of thing? The fact that you're open to doing this kind of activity makes me think that you're potentially a planner or a journaling type person. So, grab here. I'm going to switch it to the front and talk to you directly. Okay. So, there we go. So, grab wherever those places are that you're consistently jotting things down. Maybe you have a running to-do list. Maybe you have a really active Facebook or social media presence. I use Instagram a lot. So, like, I'm combing through that and kind of like noting. For me, it's also a good place to like figure out like, oh yeah, what art events did I do, and make sure I'm capturing those and kind of doing a year-end kind of like an archive for like my CV and that kind of thing. So the things that you're collecting here, they can actually be really beneficial for your record keeping as well too. And so like, it's a fun process to go through, but it can also be really, really great to like get these details down. It's so funny because like last month I went so over time and I was just like, stop talking. What are you doing? But I had so many things I wanted to share with you. This month, I think I'm going to end it early. I think that's pretty much what I have to say, is just that like, it's a good idea really to like almost like tidy up and close out your calendar just like you would your taxes and your bookkeeping and things like that, before you go to do that annual plan. And the annual plan, for your business, for yourself, whatever, it really could include all those financial things as well, like revenue goals and that kind of thing. But it really could be more like these more internal, like personal things too. And it's, I guess one thing too, it's interesting to see this last year, the things that I had planned and how much I was actually able to get done, even though the year went very different than anticipated, and like some of the places I really struggled. And looking towards 2023, what do I want to do? What do I want to make a priority? And that kind of thing. This process is so good for helping me to decide that. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to give myself like 5 minutes here at the end to do a little bit of reflection on like on the year of the live stream, right? It's kind of interesting because I even already mentioned like talking about preparing for the holiday season, um, and making your like retail plan for the holidays. It's so crazy. We're going to have our 7th year in business, like with the brick and mortar for Littlewoods. And um, that just feels wild. But I still feel like I have so much to learn about running a retail store, but I also know I do have a lot that I can teach about it too. So I'm still excited for the live stream, and it's interesting too because, and I'm sure I'll look back at this. Who knows what I'll think about? Like, oh yeah, you remember that year I did the live stream, right? Who knows where this is going? But I know like it's almost more for me. It's like I've got these things that I want to articulate and share and say, and I just felt like it was important to put it out in the world, but I didn't want to make it into a course. I didn't want to make it into a service. I think maybe because I'm not sure why. That's not a place I want to monetize right now. Like I a lot of this stuff was shared with me freely by mentors, and I felt like this was a way that I could give back to the creative entrepreneurial community. Um, like it's like a manageable way that I can give back, and that's kind of how I see it. I almost see it as like volunteer work. And because I've had a couple of people say like, why are you doing the live stream? Like, why don't you just make it into a class? Like why don't you teach a workshop? And like I don't really want to. I just want to like once a month be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about lately, and I'm gonna tell you about it. And so one of the things going forward though, like at the beginning of the year with the live stream, I started with I was crafting and talking about these business things at the same time, and I quickly realized that like it was too distracting. It didn't translate well to a podcast format at all. And it was almost better for me to just come up here and just like, it feels really weird, but like monologue for half hour to an hour once a month. And the thing about that is I still feel that way, that like for these creative entrepreneurial live streams, it's really better for me to just have notes, tell you what I'm going to tell you. Maybe eventually I'll chop these down to make them like more succinct, like 10-minute videos about each topic. Because I feel like a lot of them, if I edited them well, we could get there pretty easily because I ramble. But I do miss crafting. So here is the big, like, after looking back at 2022, there's two things. One, I want to continue. So, and these are relevant to craft leftovers. So, I guess there's three things. Okay, so one, I want to continue the live stream and to like talk about these creative entrepreneurial topics every month, same schedule. Two, I think I want to add in a second live stream and just have it be crafting because I've really been enjoying crafting, and I thought it would just be fun, right? Like, so I'm going to work in a second live stream each month that'll just be crafting, and I'm going to be talking about different craft topics. I might be sharing some things with you. I think I'm going to start out just with like mending topics. Like, I think I'm just going to live stream and mend. Like, that's my plan. And you can come mend with me or not, whatever. I'll probably ramble about something, who knows. But the main thing I'll be rambling about is mending. And so that's going to happen. And then the other thing is I do really miss blogging. And I know people are like, oh, blogging's dead or whatever. And kind of like, this is so dumb. I shouldn't say it's dumb. This is so impractical. Kind of like this live stream itself. I'm not really, I just want to blog. I just want to write about things. And I kind of don't care if, how do I say this? I kind of don't care if it's like optimized for keyword searching. So if you want some like non-optimized blog reading, that's what's going to be happening. Come hear me ramble in written format over on Craft Leftovers this year. And so I think what I'm going to do is just once a month new blog post. And that's, keep it simple. I think in 2022 I had a lot of ambitious goals and I got a lot of it done. But I think with Craft Leftovers, especially because it's not a full-time job, because it's not monetized in a way where I can really focus on it like I used to. It used to be my full-time job. I think it makes more sense to do this more limited, small drip approach to it, where because I still love it and I still want to do it, and I want it to continue into the future. So, yeah, I think once a month I will have a blog post, and twice a month I will have a live stream. And one of the live streams will be creative entrepreneurialism, and one of the live streams will be mending at first, and then potentially other craft topics as we go along. If I empty out my mending basket, ha ha ha, yeah, right. So let's see, was there any other things? I don't think so. Those were the ones I wanted to share with you. If you happen to see this and you are in Central Iowa before tomorrow, ha, yeah, right. I mean, who knows? Maybe I shouldn't say yeah, right. That's very dismissive. But okay, so if you're watching this and it is before December 15th, I will be having an open studio tomorrow, December 15th, Thursday, from 4 to 7. And it's also Wassail Fest in downtown Ames. So, like, a bunch of us are sampling mulled cider. You should definitely try Littlewoods and vote Littlewoods because it is the best. Yeah, right. There's some pretty good mulled cider on the block. Um, Ours is really good, and it has astragalus root in it too, so it's like really good for you. Anyway, so yeah, that's gonna be a fun one, and um, you know, I think that's it. I really think that's it. Last month I went super overtime. This month I'm going undertime, but I'm gonna take this little bit of extra space this afternoon to work on editing those podcast episodes and getting them out to you all. All right, so flipping back over, there's things I should say before I end. That's it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, leave a review, all that junk. Check out the show notes. They'll be up in probably, I don't know, like a week. And sign up for my newsletter to get resourceful craftiness right to your door. Inbox, not your door. Yeah, until next